Welcome back, everybody, to the Risen Championship League for the fall split of 2020. My name is Possible. With me, I have the excellent analysts of Ravish and Gopherino. We're going to be taking you through and prepping this first game here on stream. Well, the only game here, but it's a best of three. So, we got some quality league coming at all y'all. How you two feeling about tonight? We excited to dive right in?
I'm feeling freaking tastic here, Paul. It's like, how could you not be? This game, honestly, man, I've based upon throughout the season we've seen, we're officially at the halfway point. So now we're actually, you're right. We passed it. The train has left the station, and it's only going to get faster and faster. I feel like it was just yesterday we started Risen Champs with other Paul.
Well, we know how far we've gone, but let's take a look at how we've got here. Pull up the standings of all of our groups, because thus far, it's been kind of cut and dry for groups A through D. Every single group right now, 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3. No upsets, no really close standings as of yet, Jack. And that means a lot as, like you said, our halfway point playoffs is coming up.
Yeah, as we can see, every single one of these groups has literally the exact same results. So maybe the script writers at Risen HQ are like, all right, we're running out of time a little for the deadline. Who knows? Either way, though, like you said, we are running out of time here. Every team in each of these groups has already played all the other teams in their groups so far. So we do have a little bit of a preview of what is like the last time these teams met up. That even applies to our match tonight between Just Rams and Winthrop, but that's a story for a little bit later here on the desk, I think, as we can see 3-0s in each group. All these top ones with that 3-0 scoreline, they're kind of fairly guaranteed to make it out of these groups. There are still chances if they manage to lose all three of these next weeks and then possibly lose a tiebreaker, but it is, of course, the flip side for all these bottom teams here with those 0-3 scorelines. Like, that is an extremely rough place to be in right now if you're already past that halfway point, because you've been having it tough so far, and you can't make any mistakes from here on out if you want to try and make it out of these groups. And, of course, the middle of the packs, the 2-1s, your 1-2s, like, those are going to be the wild cards, I feel, coming into these next few weeks that we are really going to want to hone our eyes in on, gentlemen, because those are the primo guys that are going to be trying to fight for that second place to try and make it out here. And there's a lot that can happen in 3 weeks, as we have seen already.
Certainly. And let's just zone in on Group B. That's where we're going to be heading today. We get to see Group B on stream for the first time here in our fall 2020 split. And it's going to be Winthrop versus Just Randoms. And Winthrop, they're one of those teams sitting at 1-2 right now, but it's been close cut for them in both of their losses. Yes, in the first round robin, they lost to Just Randoms. They lost to Dark Allegiance, but it was 2-1 both times, Ravish.
It was indeed. And I actually talked to the coach and also the team lead there at Winthrop, and it got to know a little bit about them, got to know a little bit personally. We went there, we saluted on stream, and we just shook hands virtually. So with that, here's what I got to know about them. Their coach, Deos, which many of you may recognize the name, was a previous coach for Radiance. He likes to experiment, and as does his team. So that's exactly what they do. That 1-2 score basically pretty much means, because he said he comes into it more often than not, people are very much caught off guard by their play style, because they pick, like interesting picks and champions, like choosing be so bold to go ahead and go onto the elites, which is, sometimes a very different option. But they like to experiment going from game 1 to game 2 to game 3. They say scrims can only mean so much from them, but trying out the drafts in real time, seeing what picks they like and don't like, and keeping that element of surprise is where Udeo says that they thrive.
Yeah, and last time when Winthrop played against Just Randoms, that element of surprise came in a little bit as they moved that Karthus down to the 80 carry. But let's talk about Just Randoms now, Jack, because this is the team to beat in this group, right? They are 3-0. They haven't quite locked playoffs or first seed yet. As you said earlier, there is still a chance for those 3-0 teams to drop their spaghetti and miss out on things, but it would be pretty difficult for Just Randoms to miss it at this point. That being said, they do have to start off here in the second round robin with the win against Winthrop, just like they did last time. If they can do that, they will at least lock playoffs, not necessarily first seed, but they will get to playoffs. And Jack, how do we think they're going to go about it today?
It's gonna be very interesting because Ravish mentioned it himself that the last time these two teams met, it wasn't as clear cut as the standings might say. Like 3-0, that is great, but last time they met, it was 2-1, fairly bloody series there. So Winthrop, they definitely do have a chance coming in this. You can't count them out. And I was taking a look at my buddy Pukar's stat sheet earlier, which compiles a lot of statistics for these teams between Risen Champs and the Upsurge UPL League. And it turns out these two teams actually have very close win rates across both those leagues. Just randoms, they're 54.5%, whereas it is a flat 50% for Winthrop. So I would say, technically speaking, both these teams do have a fair shot this time around to win this series. And in terms of what I'm thinking is going to potentially happen, I mean, we saw what happened the last time these two teams met. We're looking over the pick and bans, and we're like, there is a lot of priority on Shen. There's also a lot of priority on banning out Zoe, Lee Sin, and Thresh. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes out on the drafts this time around because this is, of course, the second time they're meeting. That it is two patches down the line, a little bit more familiar with your teams, more familiar against the competition. So it's going to be an interesting night.
Well, let's move on to the draft then, guys. And I think first thing we have to do is address the elephant in the room. The new champion on the table, Samira, for the first time, is going to be available this week here in the Risen Championship League. Kept her out for just a little bit while everything settled around that new, somewhat controversial champion. Came in pretty hot and spicy, some hot fixes rather, patching that one a little bit less powerful. But do we still feel like Samira, now that she's entering Risen for the first time, is going to be something we have to keep our eye out for, Ravish?
Oh, 1,000%, Paul. Of course you are. Even if they did hot fix her a little bit, they only really reduced her by, I believe one of our friends was saying, just by 5%. That's really it. There's not, but like she's just still so strong. I do find if you are able to have a lot of long range, reliable poke in CC, you are able to get away from her kind of mid range team fighting styles. For example, if you had like a Jin and Lux, they'd be able to easily outrange her and just not get into that Samira style, like which dominates so much of her damage, and she reigns supreme in no matter what lane she goes. And talking to Deos too, he did in fact say, he said, we might surprise you with the picks we do bring in this week, because for example, if Samira is left up, then she might just be picked. And so with that, I am 100% expected to see her.
And Jack, do we think that since Deos, the coach of Winthrop again, is like, yes, give us Samira, let us have her, do we think that should just be a consistent ban from Just Randoms, or is there opportunity to let that one through?
I am not entirely sure because, of course, like we said, Samira is very, very much so a fresh face on Summoner's Rift right now. And she came out the gate blazing with massive hotfix nerfs. And I'm curious to see where her priority lands because I definitely agree she is going to be pickable here. Both these teams are probably going to be looking to grab her. My question is she going to be the new queen of first pick / first rotation 80 carry picks, dethrone Ashe and Caitlyn from that throne that they have been sitting atop of for the past few patches? Or is she going to be relegated to maybe a little bit later on the draft, maybe round 2, maybe even waiting for after the second phase of bans? Because maybe now with the nerfs, teams are like, all right, we need a little bit more of a specific situation to pick her. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. But I do expect to at least see Samira on the Rift in one form or another tonight, whether that be a pick or whether it be a ban.
Well, and you brought up Caitlyn. That's another pick if we're talking about the AD carry role that's pretty hotly contested between these two teams, right? Winthrop, they've put Saskio, their AD carry, on it 4 times. They've only played 8 games. He's on it half the time. And this is the guy with 30% damage share on this team, whereas Just Randoms, they've only played it once, but they've banned it more than a few times. So that AD carry role, Ravish, is going to be pretty spicy.
Yeah, of course it is, man. Look, if we go ahead and look at a lot of the team style of playing, going around and getting advantages, bot side, getting early dragging control, and being able to snowball that leads to the macro. It's that's exactly what many of these like to do. These dragons are always so hotly contested. Gaining bot side control, it's key. Having that consistent push, getting jungle support, and getting your AD carry ahead. And like you mentioned, Saskia has been that guy for them. Like, not to be confused with Sasuke, who left the Hidden Leaf Village. A little bit different storylines there. That's
Hopefully, hopefully Saskia is a little bit more consistent and doesn't leave Winthrop mid-match, because I think we would have a lot of different issues then. But speaking of issues for Winthrop, let's move on to the predictions here. All of us at Risen Esports, every week we get our Preds rather in the door, and this week not looking too hot for Winthrop. Everyone, every single person has predicted Just Randoms. You'll see the Risen Esports logo. That's just because Just Randoms don't have a logo themselves for this. But yeah, Just Randoms, 100% prediction rate right now for them in this week, Jack.
And that is really interesting because I know when I was doing preliminary research earlier in the week, I'm like, oh, good Lord, like Just Randoms, they're looking fairly strong in this group. I definitely predict it, but there's one thing that this graphic isn't showing that I think at least a lot of us here in the Risen Champs production is that while we think that Just Randoms are most likely going to come out on top, they are the favorite to win the series. I don't think many of us thought that it would be an easy dub by any means. Like, I think a lot of us were predicting that we might be hitting that game number 3 here, and that's just one thing that won't show up here. But at the end of the day, I mean, the thing that matters the most is, can you get the 2 dubs in the series?
Yeah, and fair enough. And keep in mind, the stakes are high for not only Winthrop, but also the other 2 teams that we are doing predictions for this week, TFT and Dark Allegiance. TFT need a win to stay in contention for playoffs. And Dark Allegiance, last time they were able to walk away with that win from TFT. So for them, it should be business as usual, quote unquote, but you never know with Team Fish Taco, right? With that, I believe that is more or less going to be it for us here at the analyst desk. Let's throw it over to Maisel and Smacks for the call and the draft. Guys, take it away.
The caster desk for this Risen Champs Week 4 matchup. Again, we've already talked about it. It's Winthrop versus Just Randoms. And I am none other than Mazel, joined by my wonderful, wonderful co-caster, Smacks. How you doing today, buddy? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're just talking with, we just throw out numbers sometimes. We don't really think about it. We just see, Rando Joe hands us this piece of paper. He's like, all you got to do is write a couple numbers, and we just throw numbers there, especially the play-by-plays. I know I speak for myself. I just kind of just go with it. Roll the dice, if you will. No. We try and put a little bit of analytics in it. But yeah, it's very one-sided today. Everybody thinking that Just Randoms is going to take it. But this is where I get hyped, because this is the underdog story that everybody loves. Winthrop coming in 1-2. They want to even up their standings, and they want to take down the top dogs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they came pretty close to doing it in the first match that these 2 teams played. It was a 2-1 game. Of course, Winthrop took game number 1 and then got reverse swept, unfortunately, for them. But
Yeah.
Just in the game record alone, this isn't a negative team. They are 4-4 in wins and losses combined over all 3 of their series. So there's definitely still some things to look forward to when watching this team of Winthrop. And one of those is that neutral win-loss record. But the other is, as Ravish mentioned, their coach Deos, previously of Radiance in the scouting ground circuit. He brought Radiance up to that top 8 position, and they didn't quite make it into that top 4, but they had quite a showing across the entire summer with star players such as Andy Bendy and Young and Ango. These guys had a stacked roster So
these guys.
he
No big
he
deal.
knows how to deal with these good players, and I'm hoping to see some good plays from Saskio and the rest of Winthrop as
Yeah.
well today.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Is I do want to highlight some of these players. We've seen them smacks. We've seen them through the scouting grounds. A decent chunk of them. I mean, we're looking at War Machine, Hyper, Infectrix, Saskio, Captain Shrimps, even. And
Yeah.
this is where you prove why you were in that tournament. This is where you show that you deserve to be at the highest rungs of amateur. And this is going to be a big test for the side of Winthrop, because you have these stacked claims, you have these players that should be able to perform, but it just hasn't come together yet. And we're already kicking off the second half of the season. You've got to pick it up here, Smacks.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the stakes of this game are pretty high for both of these two teams. For Just Randoms, if they win tonight's series, they will be the first team in the Risen Championship Series to lock in that playoffs. They still have to fight for that first seed, but they will instantly lock that one in and then likely be fighting for Dark Allegiance. And with that in mind, Winthrop, they really need to get their stuff together right now. They need to come back in this second half of the regular season, because if they lose tonight, their destiny is no longer in their hands at all. They have to worry about the results of Dark Allegiance and Team Just Taco in their group. So they got to step it into high gear if they want to stay in that playoffs race. And they're against none other than the undefeated team in their group. So it's going to be a pretty tough night for them. But like the analyst desk was mentioning, Samira's out. So
it is. And that's what I want
to.
Yeah, that's what I would look at. We did have, I do want to give a quick shout out to Paul, who did shout out the Karthus that was locked in bot lane last time these two teams met, but could be a different tale to take this time around. I would really love to see the Samira. First of all, to be able to cast her again. I've only gotten to cast her one time, and it did not go well for Samira. I have to say that. So maybe we get a redemption performance here. I would love to see her to see her in the game at least, because I feel like she provides such a tempo in the game that it's pretty crazy. But we'll have to see, obviously. Probably banned away, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I've seen way too many montage plays on that champion
Have
alone.
you taken her in Earth? Because
not
if
yet.
you want to break the game, you just take her in Earth, and it's ridiculous. I went 34-4 in my game, and every time I saw something, I just pop Ghost and I go in. I don't care if there's towers, I don't care if there's objective. You just win the game.
That's pretty funny. I've been playing a lot of PBE recently, so I've been looking at all the new items and everything.
I like it.
I haven't quite
real analytics.
Yeah, I haven't quite gotten down to the Earth gameplay yet on this patch, but that sounds pretty fun. Samira, of course, just so strong, especially when you get up that style meter, get all the way up to S. You can cast the Death Blossom or what. That's Reaper Ultimate, isn't it? It's the same thing.
Things happen and people die when she's around. That's all.
Killer Instinct? No, that's Kaisa. I don't remember what it's called.
It's totally fine, Specs. It's totally fine. But I do
know.
He caught.
Looks like Pro Draft started. Oh, would you look at that Thresh ban? Rumble ban is
taken away in all three of the games that these two teams played just a few weeks ago. So that one's getting some respect yet again. The Rumble is quite surprising to me, though, as that one is a new appearance, I believe, from the last time these two teams faced off. But Rumble can be flexed to multiple roles and provides a lot of magic damage. And if War Machine Hyper is going to be playing these AD junglers, then Rumble is pretty valuable.
All right, well, the gauntlet's been dropped. Do you have the confidence to play this Samira? It is wide open here, Smacks, and they say, we don't think we want it. They don't even hover it. They do hover this Lilia, though, which could be a good start to their combination here, what they go with. But it would be interesting to see the Samira fall through. But then again, you do have the thing. I mean, this champion just came out. How confident are these players on playing it? How much practice have they gotten? That's the biggest thing. Because like I said, you pick it and you're not very practiced in it. That's what happened when I casted like a couple days ago. And you don't want that to happen. So the Ashe does get locked in. We have our first ADC first pick here for Winthrop.
Yeah, I like that Ashe quite a lot. Since Caitlyn has been nerfed on 10-19, Ashe has risen in priority quite heavily. I believe that disregarding Samira, she is the strongest AD in the bot lane role in the game, but it is going to be responded to with that Ezreal. So unfortunately, Lennon, we are not going to be seeing Samira, at least in the marksman position today.
Yeah.
Of course, there is some debate on whether or not she can be flexed elsewhere because she just is that strong. But not today. We're going to be seeing that the Twisted Fate is going to be locked in the mid lane, though, for Captain Shrooms.
It is, which is really interesting. I love the TF right now. It's not the most like glorious champion, I feel like, but man, if you can play it right, you just dictate the entirety of the game. It's absolutely crazy. I'm interested in that Samira gets through. But I mean, like I said, we've highlighted it. I do want to talk about one more piece of her kit. I think it's weird that her wind wall blocks things at point blank range. I think that's
really
weird. But, yeah. So like if you just go in and you use your W in the middle of getting attacked, like if anybody's standing on top of you, so say like a Lucian or somebody like wants to get in on you and tries to like just straight up get in melee range of you, you still block the attacks, which is so weird. But we're going to move on. We're going to stop talking about Samira here until we see her. I just want to get that last little part out there. But we do have the first phase picks all the way through, except for the last one for just randoms. Bard and Silas were the pickups for Winthrop. Very interesting, but can be integral to how they want to build these pieces together. Camille, though, is a scary choice.
Yeah, just touch on the Bard a little bit. It is a pretty nice support in the game at the moment. It is pretty solid to just blind pick away, especially now that the Thresh and the Rakan are taken off the table. You still don't necessarily want to play against things like Leona or Nautilus, but seeing the Ezreal, you know the Just Randoms aren't really going to be extremely keen on picking that one since it doesn't pair incredibly well with Ezreal. He likes to be much more defensive. So I like the Bard. Seeing the support matchup, it is rather difficult to lock down an Ezreal with Bard because your only form of crowd control are skill shots, and Ezreal's Arcane Shift is very useful at dodging out of those. Most notably, the ultimate, the Tempered Fate, is very difficult to hit Ezreal with, but you can certainly hit the Twisted Fate with it, so maybe that is what they're looking at doing. The Camille lock-in I like quite a lot here for Just Randoms as their blind pick top laner. I think Camille is one of the strongest top laners in the entire game, especially with Shen off the table. There's really no champion that can contest this Camille at all, except for Jax. And you don't necessarily want to be picking Jax on the blue side most of the time because you can get that Camille flexed to a different position. So I like the Camille quite a lot, especially with the grass build that people have been running recently.
Man, it's just so strong. And then they get even more engaged. They go with the Leona. To be their support with the Ezreal. Bit of a wonky combo, but I still like it. Oh, if this goes in, we got the top lane Thunderdome up here if it comes on. I do want to highlight the bans here, though. We did have Winthrop ban away that Lee Sin and the Yuumi, as well as Just Randoms took away the Darius for Nectin.
Right. They might actually be doing that Jax right now. Oh, okay. So that golem has been thrown down, and as such, the Leona is locked in too. Like I mentioned, it's not super powerful in the lane, but it does make quite a bit of sense when you do look at the dive potential like you highlighted with that Camille and the Twisted Fate from a long distance away. So that Solar Flare is going to be rather valuable. The Graves locked in too for Winthrop. They are very short range here.
They really are. That's really worrying. But it's the reason I'm so worried is because you're going into a Twisted Fate with a gold card, but you're also going into a Camille and Leona with an Ezreal to back it up, which is a little crazy to me. That Lilia seals the deal here. They are insane with their composition. They do round it out. I love the Graves pick here, though, for Winthrop. I do feel like you can do pretty well into Lilia to a certain extent as long as she doesn't get too far ahead of you, and you can still be a very strong force in the game.
Yeah, with this Lilia locked in, there is just a lot of champions in this game that are super, super close range melee threats. Going to be a lot of brawling And I'm rather surprised that it's come down to this, considering that Just Randoms locked in Ezreal first.
Yeah,
Ezreal's
me too.
so strong against all these champions at just dodging out of the crowd control. He doesn't care too much about a Jax coming at him, especially if he goes for the Iceborne Gauntlet. So I think that Ezreal is just a very strong champion in a game exactly like this. And you have a lot of crowd control too from a very long distance away. So you can line up the shot with a True Shot Barrage, with the Mystic Shot, and we all know just how strong Ezreal can be with those abilities hitting you from just anywhere on the map. Ezreal can be a pretty big damage threat in a comp like this, especially when you have such difficulty locking him down. So it's going to be a lot on Winthrop with their crowd control ultimates, the Ashe ult, the Bard ult, and maybe Sylas taking something like a Leona ult to lock down this Ezreal for short hop.
Yeah, I think the thing is you're gonna have to try and get through this like engagey front line to get to him, and we've already seen so many Ezreals, at least because Worlds is going on, just pop off, man. Like, it is crazy to me to see some of these plays, and so maybe we'll get a little hinkling of that this time around. But with these comps locked in, I'm really interested at how Winthrop are going to pull this off, because I feel like if they can, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be an amazing smorgasbord of kills for them.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's really just trying to get the ball rolling for them, and it's going to be a lot on how these junglers affect the map, how War Machine Hyper gets out on this Lilia, how Infectrix is going to do in be able to at least set a pace for themselves and help out their solo lanes.
Yeah, I'll just say this one last time for you, Lennon. Seeing a game like this that's likely to go high kills would have been pretty fun to have a Samira in this one. Just saying,
It
just
really
saying,
would have.
guys.
I'm just saying, instead of maybe the instead of the Ezreal, you go Samira. It's totally fine. You have all that engaged, and it's cool. It's totally good.
Yeah. For the sake of just randoms, I'm glad they picked Ezreal though, because like I said, I think it's a very strong pick in this game. It's just going to be on short hop to get out of this lane. You do have to deal with the range poke of the Ashe and the Bard. Of course, with the auto attacks alone, they are going to outrange you quite heavily, and Leona being that melee all-in sort of champion, not the kind of thing that's going to help out short hop on this Ezreal in the lane too much. So gonna have to deal with that one. I'm really hoping to see something like a lane swap come out from Just Randoms to get short hop out of this lane situation so he can get snowballing. I would like to see him help out with those neutral objective takes like the Rift Herald and get him some more turret plates so he can get out of that situation and onto the map, because honestly, he's going to be pretty strong in the mid lane. There's really nobody who can match him there at all. And for Just Randoms, they have a pretty strong split push even against something like a Jax. Like we already mentioned, that Jax is quite strong into Camille. They have the Twisted Fate. They have the Lilia. They can access this 1v1 on the side lane from a very long distance away. So Winthrop going to have to be on their toes for that.
So that I haven't seen a Jax like actually played for reals in a long time in top lane, and so I'm really interested at how this matchup's going to go. Maybe you can break it down a little bit more for me, because this is one matchup that I really haven't seen in the Jax and Camille. I feel like the Jax has the upper hand though, because you have to come into him as the Camille, but maybe you can open my eyes a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So with Jax, you essentially nullify all of Camille's damage for a period of time with the Counter-Strike, right? Because all of Camille's damage, even the true damage, is going to be blocked by that ability alone. And then you can counter that with the Counter-Strike stun too, and that gives Jax enough time to start winning these trades with the Camille. So as soon as you level that ability, whether it's level 1, whether it's level 3, you are going to be stronger than Camille as well, as long as you can use that ability well. So it's going to be on Heibaragi to get that one and not get outplayed by the hookshot, because hookshot is Camille's way of outplaying that one. So there is still a little bit of a skill match element, but overall, Jax is very favored in this matchup because just Counter-Strike's really good against him.
Yeah, especially, and really being able to get these lanes going is my big ticket for this game. And so when we're looking at Infectrix and we're looking at War Machine, this Lilia, this Graves, I feel like at least you should be going to the solo lanes, but it could also be a focus towards the bot lanes. But where do you think the big focus for either of these junglers are going to go?
Well, like I said, I think that for short hop, he's really going to need to get ahead early. If they can prioritize him a little bit here, I think that's going to help out quite a lot. However, War Machine Hyper isn't really going to be ganking all that much, you got to think, on this Lilia. Usually that's a champion more just based around farming. So I would imagine that he and Captain Shrimps are really just going to have to outplay in this mid jungle 2v2. And Twisted Fate, he has that capability. He is the ranged champion in this matchup, where Silas is quite nice against the Twisted Fate because you can take away that destiny and match him wherever he roams around.
Which is nuts.
In the lane, it is still a little bit tough for the Silas because he is that melee champion. So I'm definitely looking at this mid jungle 2v2 for just randoms as being that point of pressure for them in the early game.
Yeah, and another big key, I think, here is going to be the Lilia. We've seen Lilia run over games so many times before. But if a Lilia gets behind, I always feel like it just feels so bad. It feels like you're pretty much worthless to an extent. But if you can get that CS lead going, you can get those farms going over this Graves, you're going to have the pace. You're going to have the speed to get everywhere. And when the objective control comes around, I think that's where Just Randoms really succeeds. I think they have so much setup and so much CC for that it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Also, with that mid lane matchup, keeping us keeping that in mind for this early game, the same is pretty true for the top lane. Like we mentioned, this Jax can start to run over the side lane. Camille is going to have a pretty tough time doing that on her own, but with the support of the Twisted Fatal, it becomes very, very easy for her to do that. So keeping that in mind, you can see roams from Twisted Fate, from Lilia come up to that lane and really start to help out and make Jax a little bit more on the roast, because if Jax is using his leap strike on you, that means he's confident enough that he can get you in those early trades or maybe even kill you. But if he leap strikes away, then you don't have to worry about anything. You just keep attacking the turrets all you want on this Camille. You got the true damage coming through. You got all your Sheen procs. That feels way, way better than getting jumped on by the counter-striking Jax. You can't even hit him. You just got to dash away, and then he can still kill you with a stun. So I'm definitely looking at that at being some form of attack that we could end up seeing from Just Randoms. They do have a lot of different things they can do with this, and considering that this Ezreal is a much more defensive pick, be on the lookout for pockets on the roam for this Leona too. Definitely an early mobility boots purchase could be in the notes for this game.
Yeah, could turn into that support jungle mid trio instead of the support or the mid jungle duo. We'll have to see though, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to send it to a little break here while we get through spectator delay. Do not go anywhere because we have the kickoff of this best of 3 to start the second round of the Risen Champs League. We'll be right back. the evening, and we have Winthrop versus Just Randoms with some comps coming together for a little bit of smackdown here. We have a very interesting matchups across the board.
Oh yeah, very, very melee is what I would call this setup, even though there are plenty of ranged champions. In fact, half of the champions in the game are ranged. Graves doesn't count. I don't think Lilia counts either.
He has a shotgun. That's ranged. Come on, Smacks.
Man, if you're sitting up in a sniper tower, you telling me that you'd pick a shotgun?
I bet you get hit by some of those BB pellets. All right, I bet you feel them. It's not gonna kill you, but you're gonna feel it.
I think it's likely
Is it
hailing
raining?
right now.
Yeah. It's like 90 degrees, bright and sunny outside. What is happening? It's just Graves over there in the forest shooting his shotgun at stuff from like 100 meters away.
Somebody up in the trees spilled their Chex Mix on me.
Oh goodness, that's the next skin for Graves. Safari Hunter skin.
Oh, perfect.
It's dressed up as a sniper rifle, but it's really a shotgun. Anyway, sorry, we got real League of Legends going on as we hit the laning phase here just now, so we had some time. We do get to see War Machine Hyper solo starting this red buff, while Infectress does get a leash on his.
Yeah, both of them starting on that red, not too surprising. A lot of these junglers like to just go for full clears on that red side, especially they're not really going for any ganks, and it's kind of the respect shown from these two players, and these two champions usually. All right, I'm gonna farm, you're gonna farm, let's just farm. Yay, yay, we're all happy.
What was that about, Smack? I don't think I've ever seen it. So he started the chickens, but then he didn't use them?
Oh, I can explain that. So you have your Hunter's Talisman, right?
Yeah, so you get the heal from all the shots.
Oh, hold it, wait. Genji's kind of
low. got Ignite used on him by Pocket, so that's a big cooldown used.
Okay, so as we do see Infectrix stealing away this blue buff very sneak-like, War Machine Hyper did go for the Raptors at the same time as the red. That is because when you hit multiple jungle camps at the same time, it procs your Hunter's Talisman healing for all of them. So you're healing an additional 6 times when you're taking that red buff, and because you're leashing around the Raptors, they're not actually hitting you any at all either. So you're healing back up to full HP. As you can see, he's only missing about 60 HP. That is because he did that, and it doesn't really hinder your clear speed that much either, because Lilia is that ranged champion. You can kite the red buff over to the camp and take him at the same time.
That's really interesting. I like that. I like the heal. The little mechanical outplays there. I do have to say, War Machine Hyper somehow knew that Infectrix was on his jungle, so they went ahead and swapped sides. Now they're doing a bit of vertical jungling here. I didn't see a ward, so that's why I said somehow he knew. But now Infectrix looking to set something up in the mid lane on the Captain Shrimps. Kenji here as well. This is going to be a big fight. They could get the engage here. Big yellow card. Is it going to save him? It is not. That is first blood going over to Infectrix.
Wow, yeah, and the stun from Sir Kenji lands as well. All of the cards stacked against Captain Shrimps. Not usually